conference actually aimed at achieving?
Okay, thank you very much, and it is my pleasure to be here. Climate Change Conference has become a global event that different countries look up to, but I think it has become very important because of the impact that climate change is having around the globe. Some persons may ask, what is this climate change? Because it is a very debatable topic. Some persons have not yet agreed that climate change is a reality. But with the things happening around us, even if you do not understand the technicalities of climate change, you could see the signs that something has changed. Our climate system has changed over time. What we have nowadays is not what we used to have in the last 20 or 10 years. The rain patterns have changed, the wind patterns have changed, and even the intensity of solar radiation have changed. And all these affect different activities. By the way, everything that we do is dependent on the climate. And once there is a shift in the climate that we used to know, which we base our plannings on, it will affect us. And that is why farms are being affected. That is why the transport sector is being affected when there is flood, and even in the aviation sector, that also has effect. So what happens at a climate change conference, which different countries have agreed to be meeting there to discuss how to address this impact, is basically to agree on initiatives and programs that countries should come back home and implement to address this climate change impact, to address the rising temperatures, to address the floods that are happening, basically to help people to adapt while also working towards mitigating, that is reducing those gases or greenhouse gases that go into the atmosphere and cause warming. So basically these are the two major things that countries meet every year to try to address.
So I remember that the last COP, it was basically majorly about how climate and energy can, go pari passu, and how all of this, like you spoke about, how the emission and of course these things can better be harnessed. But let's look at this year 2020, at the COP29 rather. What are some of the issues that you think that we can be looking at? We're looking at the fact that floods are almost everywhere. When you look at Nigeria, for example, floods when it rains, Lagos is like somewhere else. So what are the issues that we need to start looking at, as COP29 begins?
Okay, thank you for that question. So at COP29, there are many issues that are up for discussions. Issues of emission reduction, issues of moving away from the use of fossil fuels on clean energy to clean energy sources, issues of adaptation, issues of finance, issues of loss and damage, and several other issues that will be looked at. But particularly for Nigeria, I think some of the important issues for us concerns adaptation. How can we ensure that we get programs or we get finances that will help our people to adapt to the climate change impact? Because climate change is already here. It's like someone who is suffering from diabetes. It has no cure. You have to manage it. At the moment, it's like climate change has no cure, even with mitigation actions. So how do we cope with that? And we need finance to do that. So Nigeria we go to this conference to look at sources of finance and how the country can assess to address this climate change impact. The issue of loss and damage, which are irreversible damages that happen as a result of climate change, which a fund was established in that respect, is another angle Nigeria will look at, since we are one of the developing countries that suffer those irreversible damages from the impacts of climate change. So these are just some of the issues that COP29 will look at, in addition to transitioning to cleaner energy sources.
All right. Well, I mean, you've talked about a whole lot of things. Also, looking at the fact that you say it does not have any cure, so to say, but we have to learn to manage this situation. So I'm looking at two things at one. The first is Nigeria's 2021 policy. Where has that taken us in terms of not looking for a cure, but trying to find a way to live with this situation that we have all found ourselves in?
Yeah, if you ask me to assess, I would say some things have been done in relation to the 2021 policy, and even in relation to the updated nationally determined contributions, which is one of the commitments Nigeria has made to reduce the emission and address climate change impacts, but not so much. Not so much because the policies of government, of the federal government, are expected to be implemented by states. And if you look at the actions of states in relation to climate change, they are not so much as they ought to be. So despite the fact that things are happening, not a lot are happening to help people to adapt to the impact of climate change or even to mitigate climate change. So much more still needs to be done in regards to that policy implementation.
We talked about funding, and one of the things that this administration is trying to do now, after the End Bad Governance protest. Now the government says, we've heard you loud and clear.
Or more or less like after the outcry last year.
Yeah, exactly. After the outcry almost more than 1,000 delegates or so, so now the government is saying we want to cut on cost. And this cost they are trying to save is in the range of like 10 billion from this trip. What is your take on that, looking at the fact that
we're looking for money to fund projects of climate change?
Yeah, I think it is good that government wants to cut down costs. But let me say that the delegation to COP28 to Dubai last year was not made up of just government officials, or we are not all sponsored by the government. Because when I saw that in the news, I went to the UNFCCC portal to check the delegation of Nigeria. I saw the number, but some of the members of the delegation came from civil society, some from the business sector and the likes.
I think the government also cleared that.
Yeah.
They also did.
I know many of them came from the government. But if the government wants to, which is a good thing to do, we should not start now anyways, and we should not be limited to delegation to climate change conferences alone. The government should also focus on cutting costs across the different areas that cost needs to be cut, because the country needs money to put into development. But they should not lose sight of the fact that they need to put their best foot forward to negotiate for the government at COP29, so that the benefits that will come from that conference will also rub off on Nigeria.
All right, we don't have much of time, but it would be good to get a sense of direction, going forward. So what do you think? Our 2021 policy hasn't really been much carried along by the states, but how do you think we should address this issue of climate change in terms of policy formulation that would have states keen in also?
Yeah, so many states are putting up their climate change policies, but climate change, as you know, is a cross-cutting issue. It's not a stand-alone issue. It affects health, it affects agriculture, it affects water resources, it affects almost every sector. So it rests on all the sectors to come up with the strategies and programs that will help people to adapt. So in agriculture, you can begin to look at climate sensitive agriculture, how people can access climate information and work with weather information so that they are not affected by drought, dry spells, or floods. In health, they can also work with climate information to prevent diseases like malaria or the outbreak of some of these insects that cause several diseases. So every program, every sector can come up with different initiatives. The aim is for development. The aim is for good health and to bring people out of poverty, because climate change is not a standalone issue, it's a development issue and should be treated as such.
Thank you very much, John Baki. Thank you for your insights on this topic. We'll now go on a break. While we come back, we'll move straight into headlines. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Our planet, our home, threatened by man's activities with fears of mass extinction on the rise. On Green Angle, we examine the issues that affect our environment, seek solutions to put us on track to secure and restore a cleaner and greener world for generations to come.
Life is politics. In Nigeria, almost every part of our lives is touched by the politics we play. Governance, legislative matters, the economy, security, foreign affairs, internal affairs. Have a feel as strategic plays in the political space determine how we live in Nigeria. The players, the drama, chess piece moves. Be kept informed. Watch analysis of major happenings in the political space and how it affects you. Watch Politics on Sunday.
Welcome back, and now move straight into headlines. The federal government has approved a 10 billion grant to the National Broadcasting Commission for the completion of the project of the digital switchover across the country as part of its transformative journey to achieve digital switchover dividends for Nigeria.
President Bola Tinubu has slashed the number of Nigeria's official delegation to this forthcoming 79th session of United Nations General Assembly in New York, United States.
And the federal government has inaugurated a 10-man interministerial committee to enforce Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy. This comes to enforce the Supreme Court judgment delivered on the 11th of July 2024, granting financial autonomy to local governments in Nigeria.
Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun has been sworn in as